There is nothing more likely to strike fear into the heart of a hand spinner and knitter than the sight of a clothing moth. And these tiny little innocuous creatures can wreak absolute havoc in our stashes and our wardrobes. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing some of my top tips of how you can prevent an infestation, and if you're unlucky enough to have one, how you can deal with it. If you're new here, my name is Becca and I'm a hand spinner, knitter and newbie weaver, and you're very welcome to my home in West Wales. If you're an old friend, welcome back. So what do I mean by clothing moths? Well, I do not mean the big moths that kind of fly in the summer, kind of attracted to our lights on if we've got all the doors and windows open. They're not going to attack your woolens. What I'm talking about is two particular little beasties, and they are very little, they're kind of that size. And we have the webbing clothes moth and the case-bearing clothes moth. These little beasties love wool. They will eat other animal fibres, but it is particularly wool that they are very keen on. But it's not the moths that eat it, it's actually their larvae. So what they do is they're kind of flying about, particularly in sort of July and August, and they lay their eggs in your woolens that you've maybe got stored until the winter. And then a few weeks later, little beasties hatch out and start eating holes in your clothes. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is prevention. What can we do to prevent the moths getting into our woolens? Well, the first thing that we can do is actually keep them secured. And if you are somebody who has a stash, then I really recommend that you actually keep it in a container with I was going to say a locking lid, but a tight lid. And I'll just show you what I use. So I have a series of these, and they have a pretty tight fitting lid, and you can sort of secure it like that. So this is spun up, hand spun, and I also have a much bigger one for fibre that hasn't been spun, so that basically the little beasties can't get in and lay their eggs. Another great way to keep the little moths from actually getting into our stash or our woolen clothes is to disguise the smell of the wool. There are three particular smells that the moths really, really hate, and that's lavender, eucalyptus and cedar. So we can either use essential oils, or in the case of cedar, you can actually use cedar balls or little pieces of cedar that you can hang up in your wardrobe, and that really helps to kind of disguise the smell of the wool so they're less likely to find your woolens in the first place. Now, I like to use little lavender bags, and this is lavender that we harvest from our garden. Put it in these, and it does need to be renewed each year, but we grow quite a lot of lavender, so that's easy. And then I can hang these in the wardrobe, I can put them in a drawer, or in the case of this, I've actually got a little one that goes in there. So you can also use cedar and eucalyptus essential oil, or you could use lavender essential oil if you don't want to kind of use lavender bags, and actually it's sort of a little cotton wool ball or a kind of makeup pad, something like that, a few drops on, and just put it in with your woolens, and that is going to really stop the moths from being attracted to the wool in the first place. If you're a hand spinner and you're wet finishing your yarn, another thing that you can do is add a few drops of essential oil to your rinsing water. Now I have to say, this is not my tip, and it is not something I've been doing, but it's something I'm going to be doing. And this was a great tip from our lovely friend over in New Zealand, NZ. So thank you so much for that tip, and I think it's brilliant, and I'm definitely going to be doing that going forward. So if you were lucky enough to have a cedar chest, then that could be a fantastic place to store your stash and your fibre. I think probably less of us have a cedar chest than maybe we did, but if you think about in ye olden days, then a cedar chest was very prized, and people used to keep their heavy blankets in them. I'm talking about a time when kind of blankets and quilts were highly prized because they were very expensive. so that actually keeping them in something like a precious cedar chest made absolute sense. So another top tip is to quarantine. So if you've got any yarn coming in from outside your stash, so whether you've bought it in a charity shop, a yarn shop, or you've taken part in a de-stash, one of the things you need to do is quarantine it before it goes into your stash. And the best way to do that is in the freezer. So put your wool, and I've got a bit of wool here, in something like a Ziploc bag, so it's quite a kind of thick kind of plastic. I mean, a freezer bag of some sort. Pop it in the freezer, leave it in for a week, take it out for 48 hours, put it back in for a week, and that should break the life cycle of the larvae and should kill anything that might kind of hatch out and come and kind of infest the rest of your stash or come into your wardrobe. And that's a really great way of also treating any kind of jumpers or woolen clothes that maybe you've got from a charity shop or thrift store. So thick plastic bag in the freezer, week, out for 2 days, week again, and that's going to have eradicated any of the little beasties that might come along and want to start chomping away on your woolen clothes. So there is another option that we've got, and that is a thing called a pheromone trap. And if you grow apples or pears, you might have heard of pheromone traps being used in the orchard, and they're generally used as monitoring traps so that you know whether you've got a problem. But we can do the same thing in our wardrobes or in our stashes or maybe in our wool room or our work room. And there's a company in the UK called Clothes Doctor, and they actually sell a little pheromone trap, and it's kind of like a little paper tent, and I'll try and find a picture, and you can hang that up. And then if you've got any clothes moths, and it's a really good way to know if you actually need to go and kind of put all your woolens in the freezer, then the little moths are attracted to it and they land on the kind of the sticky bit and curtains for the moths. Now, I will leave a link for them in the description below, and I believe they offer a discount, so I will put the discount code in there, assuming I can find it and work out how to do it. I mean, it shouldn't be beyond me really, but you know, sometimes it is. So yeah, I'll leave that there so that you can have a little look. And they also sell lots of laundry liquids and kind of drawer liners and things that are really going to stop those naughty little moths from coming in and destroying your clothes. So if you have any top tips on how to prevent moths and how to get rid of them, then please do leave a comment below. It is fantastic to get all the different ideas and find out what people do to solve this slightly annoying problem that we can find ourselves with if we work with wool. I hope you found that information useful, and there's only one thing left for me to say, and that is, until next time, may your needles be swift and your yarns be soft.